Hello to everyone listening to us. I am Renata, the conference host, and our today's guest is Vasanta Das. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
You have been living in Lithuania for some time now, haven't you?
Yes. It's been 11 years now.
11 years. Wow, that's a lot. And you, if my understanding is correct, you teach people from all the walks of life, let's say, the clarity about themselves.
Yes, this is my job. I use a method called Vedic astrology. I learned it from the monks that I lived for 10 years in an ashram. So the monks there used to do it as a hobby. So I've learned this method from the monks. And then, after I started to get into coaching, once I was in the Western world, because I noticed that the language that the Eastern world uses is not precisely what the Western mind understands. So, over the years, over the span of 20 years, I've made a blend between East and West. And, it's very helpful for people. This is what we do now every day. Daily, we are having 3 to 4 clients, and we are serving them and trying to find clarity in their life.
So we're going to talk today about spirituality within a family. How do we cultivate it? Maybe we're going to start by, this clarity. But before we teach anything to our children, we need to be clear about ourselves, our beliefs, what we believe. So how to get this clarity? Where do we start?
Well, it's a simple question to answer. Everything has to do with 2 aspects, basically. Mm-hmm. One of the aspects is to realize that at every given moment, every single human being has a relationship with the universe. Mm-hmm. And the consciousness of the universe. So the key word here is relationship and the quality of that relationship. And then, of course, there is the factor of free will that, we're not all the same. We all come from different backgrounds. We don't all have the same training. Emotionally, we've been impacted by different experiences, etc. So the other key word here is the realization that we are free and that at every given moment we have choice. So choice and free will basically means that whatever is unconscious, by the act of, being in a human body, we can make it conscious. And of course, we can always change our destiny. So clarity actually comes from not reacting at life, but actually deciding in what way we want to have a relationship with life, a relationship with ourselves. This is a conscious choice. So the more that we choose on values instead of fears, the more clear our path becomes. Otherwise, we are just simply reacting. So my experience is when most of the people come to see me, they're either reacting based on unconscious fears, or they're just playing their life based on their needs, right? Mm-hmm. We have a job because we need money or we need to sustain a family, but that is not necessarily aligned with their purpose in life or their inner calling, the voice of their heart, their inner world even. So, people that come in a little better state, they come in the platform of desire. It's like enjoy life, spend your money. But that doesn't cut it either. To have power and money and a lot of pleasure in life, still something's missing. So I think the way to make clarity in one's life, I always tell people, is like figure out the 2 or 3 things that are important in life, that have meaning, that you can see meaning by aligning to those principles. So those 2 or 3 things that are non-negotiable in life, and then try to build your life around that. And, definitely you'll end up in a place of harmony. And from there itself, we can start spirituality, because, usually when I ask people, is like, what's the most important thing in life? They say family, relationships. Some people, they like stability. Some people, they like to cultivate themselves, but it's always very positive. So, by building our life around our values, then we can gain clarity and meaning and all of that.
So what you are saying is that we start by 2 or 3 simple things that we really value in life.
Yes.
Which are personal, of course, to everyone. And then starting from that, we kind of go towards them, and then build all our life around it. And there is no need to change like circumstances in life. It's more about what we think about it and what we want to make out of it.
Yes, because if you think about it, Western world always sells us this idea, right? Especially capitalistic world sells us the idea that happiness is somewhere in possession or in capital, and that happiness is something external to oneself. But nothing could be more far away from the truth, actually. The type of comfort that we may have external to us may shelter our body, but it will not address the needs of our inner world. So if you think about it, the amount of influence that we can have of the universe can only remain external, right? If we were talking about impacting our karma. But, our sphere of control is actually within us. So the quality of our experience, whatever it is, that we were born with great karma or not so great karma, the quality of our experience actually has to do with our choices and actually our attitude towards life. So that's all internal work. So at some point in our life, we figure out, I see in this generation, especially in your country, I think it's because, being a post-Soviet country, Lithuania, and then given the gift of freedom, right, in one generation, which is the generation that you're part of, it's like a very new thing. It's a very valuable gift. And, you guys are still not exploiting it. I see that countries that have been free for a long time, there's an exploitation of that freedom. And when it comes to Lithuanians, there's still that tender, young appreciation of what it means to be free and have own choices. But at the same time, there's this dialogue of the Western world, which, leads us into the external, right? In your generation, what I'm seeing is that parents are increasingly more aware of the quality of life they want to give their children. And it's not all based on, resources or infrastructure or capital, which are things that are external to the human being, but rather more intrinsic, right? So for example, learning to know the nature of the child, knowing that every child is different, knowing that, what the type of education that an artistically inclined child will get, for fulfilling his potential is very different than from a mathematician or a scientist. So, there is languages for that, and we can know them right away from the moment of birth. Well, one of those languages is, for example, astrology. And as far as I know, there's a lot of way to typify character based on Western psychology as well. So it is possible to know it. So yeah, it is very important to realize that potential and that sphere of influence is within oneself. And the quicker that we start that work on oneself, which is, first of all, get to know our nature. It's like, who am I? And, what is natural for me? What is my natural inclination? In what way could I add value in my highest potential to the world? In what way can I perform an activity that is not just satisfying my needs, but that is actually expressing the potential of my life as a human being with meaning? And that adds value to the world, right? Because then there's, a great degree of happiness in our interaction. When we feel valuable, when we feel that we are definitely, adding some type of benefit into other person's life, then happiness starts to revolve because the relationship is positive, and relationships are quite fulfilling.
I was listening to you and thinking that, we live in a world where every temptation is outside. Yes. And we have this idea that, the happiness, as you told, is outside. So if we're unhappy, we're going to change our job. if we're unhappy, you're going to change sometimes our family, you know, or buy a new house, you know, whatever. How do you make the shift, you know, to go inwards and to go inside? How many people say, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like.
Yes. You know, you ask any child, right, to draw you a drawing with crayons. It's like, draw what you love. Every child knows that. You know, it's very difficult to find a child. It has to be an extremely traumatic situation for a child not to draw a butterfly or an Easter egg or a heart or a sun, some water or a pet, their own family, really. And, you know, as we go forward as human beings, we forget that actually it's very simple. Now, all these temptations, they come about by seeking pleasure of the senses, which is one of the topics that the Eastern school teaches us a lot, that we are not our body and we are not our mind. We are beyond that. You know, the body and the mind are instruments that we use in this world to navigate. But to think that by pleasing the body, we're going to become happy and fulfilled, it's very limiting, because there are subtle layers of ourselves. So like if you see what we share with the animals, they look for food, they look for shelter, they look for a mate, and they defend themselves. And if we live a life based on that, then what is the point of being able to realize that we have a choice? You know, we're trapped by our senses, just as an animal is, but a human being is different. We can choose, and we are always seeking for that fulfillment, right? So there's a difference, I think, and this is where the Western world is very limited, because the Western world is speaking to us about success, and the Eastern world is speaking to us about fulfillment, which are very, very different things, right? Yeah. So in answer to your question, people that don't know who they are, I think it's simply that they've covered themselves with expectations, you know, what the world has told them they should be, or, you know, adopting ways or a culture, right, that leads you into dead ends. So what I see a lot in my clients and the people that I've met, you know, along the way, myself included, it's at some point as a human being, you reach an existential crisis, right? And that existential crisis spins you into asking the one or two things that are important in life. So it's not really about asking a lot of questions. I think it's about asking the important ones. And the first important question is like, who am I and what's my relationship with everything? So who am I? Well, let's start with some basic qualities that every single spiritual path speaks about: free will, and, you know, the potential of choice. So by the quality of our choice and our intelligence and our knowledge and our wisdom that we may cultivate, well, of course, we can get into more harmonic states. And that is a personal choice, right? Now, finding oneself, you know, you can believe all you want, right? Like, you know, like if I had some hot sauce and I'm chewing on it, then I can think so much. It's like, oh, this is so sweet. No, but in reality, it's hot in it, you know, and it hurts in my mouth. But then I can try to convince myself, I believe that this is sweet. But, you know, the truth is that what's going on in my experience and what I should believe doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So nature is something very important, I think, when you're starting out your spiritual path and you're trying to find yourself. It's a path to reconnect. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the word religion, if you look at the root of the word religion, it's the Latin word for reunite, religare. That's where religion comes from. And religare doesn't mean another thing that to again connect with oneself, connect with the universe, reconnect. And if you look at the word in Sanskrit for that same term, it's yoga. Yoga means connection. Wow. So it is the same as religion, religare, to reconnect, right? So we are all looking for a way to reconnect with our nature as human beings. Mm-hmm. So if you're out there, you know, whoever is watching your podcast and you're in these videos, you know, the first thing you need to do is not go forward in a path that you already know is not natural for you. It's like sometimes the only thing that you need to do is just stop And, whoever you are, in whatever part of your life are, if you're depressed or very successful, or if you have failed a number of times, the only thing you need to do is really stop and understand that it doesn't matter what you have done, you still have a choice. And if you are going nearby people that represent what you aspire to become, it is easier to learn it. So we're always modeling somebody or someone, right? So the quickest way to find yourself is that natural attraction we may feel for certain personalities that are around us. Like some people may feel attracted to Pope Francis, some people may feel attracted to Dalai Lama, some people may be attracted to Sadhguru. Many, many choices are there. And what are these individuals? They're individuals that have found a way to harmony, and that found a way to connect in a loving, beautiful way to the world and add value. So happiness comes from that. Now, are their paths similar in some ways? Are they different in other ways? Yeah, sure. The way that they connect with the universe is very different. Dalai Lama and Pope Francis, the nuance is different. It's like a different color, but they're both connected in a beautiful way. So as human beings, what we're trying to understand is, how do we connect with meaning and fulfillment? And it's not external, so it must be that it's intrinsic, it's essential to oneself. So please remember, the journey is inwards. And, this is where, sometimes people go to a psychologist or to a therapist. Basically, the dialogue is, help me heal so that I can connect. So it's always about reconnection, I feel. And reconnection is something very honest. It's an honest choice one takes. Look, I'm going to be honest with myself. What speaks to me?
And I love this idea about being honest and also reconnecting to ourselves inside, going where we feel good, surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us. And you mentioned religion, and I want to ask you, do you see a difference, and how do you see it's different, religion from spirituality? Are they all the same or not?
Well, if you have a smartphone, right? If you have an Android or an Apple phone, they have different operating systems. So like some people, they swear by the operating system in Apple, and some people like the freedom of Android, right? So it's a technology. In reality, they do the same thing. They have the same potential, but the operating system is slightly different. So there's been a development of a technology or a mind frame. So that's the OS. It's like a mind frame. Or like if you use a Windows computer or a Mac computer, the experience is going to be different. But what really matters is what you do with it. Not so much the platform. So a religion is what the elders in every tradition realized would be helpful for us to reconnect with ourselves in a loving way, and actually reconnect, in our dialogue with the absolute. So they have left us technologies. Now, within time, those technologies, of course, have become dogmatic. So it's almost like worshiping Apple OS, right? And I will never use Android. But that's just very silly, because the goal of an OS is to serve us in fulfilling our duties. So it's the same with religion. With time, things become dogmatic because a person that has no realization practices them. So the vision of the technology becomes limited. So yoga is a technology, to stand in poses and do breathing and, opening the channels in the body. That is all technology. It is only meant for us to, have a calm, peaceful flow of energy, an open and clear state of mind. Now, when we reach that, that's when spirituality comes. It's like, okay, I've realized, what have I realized over religion and yoga? I'm not my body. My body's temporary. I'm not my mind. I am the soul within the body, and I am the soul that precedes the mind. The mind is a tool for my soul. So every religion should take you to that realization. Once you realize that you're not your body and you're not your mind, and you realize that in eternity, your soul has the potential for everything, well, what's the best choice that you have? Obviously, love and service, or, as other people call it, add value, right? Service and add value to the universe. Because otherwise, if we are not constructive, we are destructive. If we are not in harmony, we're in chaos. So within all the choices, what the spirituality means, basically that we realize we can have a loving connection with everything. So that's when religion ends and spirituality starts. But religion is just a technology left by the elders. And in every tradition in the world, you're going to see a different technology, right? According to the time, place, and circumstance that those cultures develop from. And, the difference in nuance, as I have learned, is that everybody has a slightly different relationship in quality with the absolute, with God. Some people see God as a friend and have a relationship as a friend. Some people as a servant. Some people as a lover. So, in whatever way we are connecting with God and having a relationship with the absolute, the potential for a loving relationship is always there. And that's actually the potential of the human being. So that is spirituality.
I love it. How, once we are on this path, once we start to awaken, to turn inwards, to really think about, what brings us on this earth, how do we talk about it within our family to our children? What is the way to paint this higher power? If you don't want to use like God or Buddha, whatever names, what is the way to talk about it, like in a broad general sense?
Well, I think that in my experience, what helps me connect with people that are sometimes not understanding of my path, right? I came from a very Christian family. Mm-hmm. And then I pursued Hinduism later on in my life. And to this day, I am an avid practice Hinduism. So that is the path that spoke to me, that's the one that expresses the colors of my soul. But the way that I've related always to my uncles and my aunts and, to people of all walks of life that I found is I try to understand what is in common amongst all human beings. And for example, a smile, it doesn't matter what OS you use, if you use Mac OS or Windows, your smile speaks to everyone in the world. And if it's sincere, it'll lighten up the heart of somebody else. So what I've realized is it's not so much about what you say, because any type of dialogue is just trying to convince people of something that works for you. And that is rooted in deep insecurity. If you know that it works for you, then you know that you have the happiness in some degree, and that's what you share. You share the kindness, you share the tolerance, you share the open-heartedness, you share the space, right? You share the embrace, you share the friendship, you share the smile, you share the willingness. You share the peace, and all of those things, you don't need to preach them. You just need to be present. It's not so complicated. By changing oneself, when you undergo the journey, in the beginning, we want to convince others that, I'm doing the right thing, or, I see it a lot with.
Yeah, that's the good path.
Yeah, wives trying to convince the husband to come forward. But there's nothing more seductive in nature than true happiness, because that's what everybody wants. So if you practice, right, like if you wake up in the morning and pray, or if you wake up in the morning and practice gratitude, your attitude will be more grateful. You will see, instead of a universe that threatens you, you'll see a very loving environment. You will understand that everybody in nature is developing according to their own time. And you just become more acceptant. So you realize that you're not here to demand anything from anybody. You're here to give what you can. And if what you can is loving and beautiful, then, you know, the result of what you're giving is automatically meant to be beautiful, beautiful. And I think in simplicity, we should trust that if we are practicing and, you know, we're trying to embrace somebody that cannot see what we see, it's just a matter of time, really. And if not, the paths naturally split, right? So that's also the acceptance of free will, really. You know, when we understand that everybody's free and everybody can go wherever they want because, you know, that's the universe, then what's the pressure? The only pressure is to understand that, okay, I chose that path. It made sense to me. And the personality that has resulted from that is what I can share with you. Now, when it comes to children, it's different, right? Because as parents, we have a responsibility over them. So basically what we're trying to figure out is what technology are we going to program them with so that they can connect with that nice part of themselves, right? And have the most beautiful relationship with the universe possible. So as parents, we're also trying to teach them yoga, right? It's like, okay, if you do this, then the result will be that. And there's nothing wrong in that, right? So I think basic things to teach children are you can go to a happy place within you always. Love is an ever-present undercurrent in reality. You know, there is intelligence in the universe. There is providence in the universe. The sun is out there every day, and it's a source of light and heat, and it has always been and will ever be. Teach them to be grateful and teach them that they have the potential to add value and that they can relate to others in love instead of fear, and because that's a choice we can make. You know, how you want to go about the, you know, the dialogue and the storytelling, well, you know, culture helps for that. So you can read the Bible, or you can read the sutras, or you can read the Bhagavad Gita, because as human beings, we're storytellers. We're always constructing a narrative. It's part of our psychology. So in order to have a beautiful narrative, a poetic one, or, you know, a heart that sings, you know, these stories, they represent aspects of our potential that we can tap into. So that's why they're played out in the universe. And it's very, very helpful. But is one better than the other? You know, the best one is the one that takes you to love, I think, because love and happiness, because that's what everybody wants. So in whatever way we can find our potential to service, that's what's right. And you can give it to your children. So storytelling is, you know, the tool of the parent, right? Two things: your personal example, how you behave and how you go about your life, and you know, the way that you narrate the story. So your capacity to be a storyteller, the words you use, you know, how you relate to your children, jokingly, friendly, lovingly, unconditionally. That means a lot more than many, many other things. So,
and I love this idea about sharing the outcome rather than competing with technologies. Like, if you share the result of your way of living, your happiness, your peace, your inner calm, it's way more powerful than competing about which technology do I use to get the result. Because we can use different technologies and there is nothing bad with it. I mean, we can all choose our own path as long as, you know, it brings us peace.
Yes, and meaning. You know, like if you go out to the garden, right? Now in my life, I have opportunity to live in garden house. So I go out and, you know, for me, it's first time in my life. I come from Mexico City, so it's an urban jungle. So now I'm living in nature, and we have an apple tree and we have an orange tree, and, you know, we have a jasmine tree as well. And now a cherry tree came. So, you know, I have seen the cycle of the apple tree from winter to summer to autumn when it gives the apples. And, you know, I was shocked to know that apple trees have flowers. I thought it was just apples, you know, but they give flowers and then apples. So imagine that, you know, I go to the apple tree and I tell the apple tree by indoctrination, you're a mango tree. And if you don't give me mangoes, I'm going to be very upset with you. But the apple tree won't be disturbed. You know, the apple tree has an inner rhythm, and eventually it's going to give you an apple because it's an apple tree. So whatever technology is used for caring for apple trees may be different than the one that is used to, you know, avocado trees, which are more tropical, or orange trees. So it's a different technology, right? But the result of it is that the avocado tree is going to give you an avocado and the apple tree is going to give you an apple. It's a beautiful thing. You know, what would the universe be without apples? Yeah, I don't know. You know, something be missing. So an apple is the fruit of the tree, and it's something delicious, and it's something that carries the potential of new life within it. It is organic, it is natural, it is delicious. And, you know, the entire universe is inside of it. And it's a good thing. So why should an apple be a mango, or why should a mango be an avocado? I think that's what we get wrong as humanity, that, you know, once we found something that works for us, we want every single tree in the garden to be an apple tree. But that's not the way the universe is created. So everybody in their personality has a different relationship with God and a different relationship with the universe. Otherwise, we'd all be clones, and the universe would be very boring. There'd be no variety. And so eternity would be meaningless, really. But if there's variety, then the Hindus call it a lila, the play. It's unlimited. So it keeps us, you know, it keeps consciousness entertained and forward moving. Always there is something new. So yeah, you know, we should try to always respect the life path of another. And in the end of the day, you know, when the apple has bloomed and the orange has bloomed, maybe we can realize that, you know, in the end of the day, the apple was not for the apple tree. The apple was an offering, and that's love right there. You know, the tree realizes, oh, this beautiful thing I've been working out all my life, it's a gift. And we can give that back to the universe, and then we're done. And we can manage to have an attitude of love. Well, that's it. And if the orange tree does the same and the avocado tree does the same, then we're going to be good. But until we're fighting, you know, for the supremacy of the apple tree, there will always be war.
I truly believe it, that we all come with our true, unique nature.
It's inherent.
It's inherent, and we don't even have to, you know, to discuss it or try to be someone else or try to be, you know, a better person. You know, we just have to believe that just as we are enough, and the free will we're gonna have and choices we're gonna make, that's our path. And no matter what we have to offer to this world, it's a gift, as you say. It's a gift, and we have to give it. We have this, I don't know, moral duty maybe, to give ourselves, you know, the best that we have, our inner purpose, to this world. Because otherwise, who will give it if not?
Well, it's our nature, right? So it's good to realize, it's like, okay, in this life I'm an apple tree. Perhaps in past lives I've been something else, but in this one's an apple tree, right? So let's work on those apples. And then once those apples are there, we can offer them, and it's good, you know. We usually in the Western world, we're always thinking that our purpose is something great. But how is an apple not great? How is an orange not great? It's something so delicious and so beautiful. So as human beings, you know, I think we fail to see the simplicity of our purpose. Everybody has one. Temporary one in this life. There's something that we must give. And then eternally, which is what we're trying to tap into with spirituality, is we are trying to realize what is our potential for love. What is that potential? The potential is, if in this life I'm an apple tree, I'll give that with love. If my next one I'm an orange tree, I'm going to do that and give it with love. If in the next one I'm meant to be a mango tree, I'm going to do that and give it with love. If in the next one I'm meant to be a human being, I'm going to do that and I'm going to do it with love. If I'm meant to be a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, a teacher, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it with love. Until we finally realize, oh, it was all about loving connection with the universe. So if in my next life I'm meant to serve God personally, okay, I'm going to go do that with love, because that's the attitude. So spirituality is that attitude and that consciousness of being able to give the best in us with love. And every religion of the world is trying to help us realize that, right? Every spiritual path in the world and every honest spiritual teacher in the world is just trying to remind us that, that could happen right now. It's already there. So again, I think it's about simplifying oneself and understanding there's 2 or 3 things that matter in life. And then, the rest is just,
external circumstances.
Duty, circumstantial. To get to the apple, we must do some work, right? The tree has to drink some water and catch some sun. Mm. And so we do the good work. And then finally, we produce that fruit, right? And what I see in the Western world is that we are, and also these days in India, and in the East, in Tibet, that we're very disconnected culturally from our potential for our potential of service, kindness, and love. There's a disconnection with that. But again, these days we live in such a fertile world that connection is immediately possible. If you want to go on YouTube and take some lessons from one of the greatest gurus in the world, so you can just, it'll take you 2 clicks to get to him. So, we're not very far away from associating with self-realized souls. If you think about it, 500 years ago, it's like, what are the probabilities that somebody in Lithuania could meet Dalai Lama? Or, anybody in Africa connecting with Sadhguru? Great people like this, right? Or anybody like such as myself to be able to listen to the Pope, right? Very difficult. But these days we can connect. And if we hear their message, what they're telling us is love, kindness, compassion, wisdom, service, right? What they're doing with their life, they're serving the universe in harmony. They believe in the possibility of that beautiful world. We can connect.
While listening to you, I was wondering, to have this loving attitude, towards the universe and every single person living on this earth, you have to practice it daily. You have to remind yourself, you have to be in there. What are your maybe favorite spiritual practices? What keeps you grounded? What keeps you centered?
Oh, my favorite, I perform this practice called kirtan. So now I live in an ashram. So this is what my life has come to. I've, by grace of my guru, we are living in the ashram every day. So daily we have kirtan. Kirtan means a congregational prayer. So everybody comes together, we pray together, and we use mantras, which are transcendental sound vibrations, root syllables and root sounds that are infused with spiritual power. Mm-hmm. So we are constantly remembering. Every day we at least do, every day 2 hours of kirtan. And then, on a good day, we'll do 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. And it's a meditation. So that's my favorite, because when you're singing, it's just very natural for the human being to forget their worries. And when we are called to sing and pray together, there's a lot of joy in that practice. Sometimes we even do dancing. So for me, that's my favorite. I also have time alone, so I like to walk in nature. And I like to chant the mantra that my guru gave me. I'm always chanting it now for 22 years. So it's the same mantra all the time. But while I'm walking, I'm in constant dialogue with God. And he speaks so many different languages. He speaks the language of nature. He speaks the language of the birds. In the winter, the birds are quiet, but in the spring, they're very chatty. And he speaks the language of flowers and fruits and rhythm and possibility and, miracles in every step of, if you go to nature, you'll just see miracle after miracle after miracle. And it's that dialogue, I think, the cultivation of that dialogue. There's many other things that are very possible to do. Every year when it's possible, I go to see my guru in India, who is, light years more advanced than I can ever hope to be in this lifetime. But, we have to start somewhere. So I try to go and see him and serve him. And, whenever he gives me an instruction, I try to fulfill it. Mm-hmm. And it is in the fulfillment of that instruction that we find our essence. So many, many beautiful things. I'm always constantly praying now that I'm like a priest for the Hindus. So I fulfill the role of a pastor, taking care of a community. So my path requires an immense amount of constant prayer. And what is prayer? I think basically to understand that we are really not in control of too much. We're in control of the kindness that we ourselves can give. But, can a drop of water sway the ocean? So it's constant prayer to the ocean and constant reminder of the infinitesimal quality that we have, but at the same time of the potential that we have, because even though we're infinitesimal, we have what God likes, which is love. So constant prayer, I would say, is my path. Prayer, connection with nature, trying to treat those around me with kindness, respect, trying to add value to their lives as much as possible, keeping myself in the good consciousness to remind myself that today, instead of being selfish, I can give. And to remind myself that also in order to give, one must take. So to be humble enough to accept and give. But again, it requires practice. And the joy really comes from, I think, from the singing and from seeing how the lives of those around me change in a positive way by coming in touch with spirituality. Because otherwise life can be pretty tough. So, try not to fall into the details of the times and trying to keep a perspective of the potential and acting in such a way. So to act in a way that is loving is very different than to know the theory of being loving. Love is always an action. It is not a theory. It's we can talk all we want about love, but it's like licking the honey outside of the jar. It's there, but there's no taste. So my guru used to say, if you want to taste it, you got to put your hand in there and bring out some honey and taste it, then you'll understand. So that's service and practice. As you said very well, we have to practice every day. So, encourage our children to practice acts of kindness. That'll open a dimension in their self that is very beautiful, to encourage them to practice friendliness, sharing, to encourage in them the respect for our earth, the respect for the natural world, a respect for everything else that is not human, to learn to respect the river and the cloud that give us water and rain, and to learn to respect the sun that gives us the fire of life, to learn to respect the holy people in our community that remind us of the best in us, to learn to respect the male principle and father and the female principle and mother, because that's what the universe is made of, and it's not random. So to learn to see the beauty and the respect and the potential of serving the male, the female, the elder, what is known, and all the gifts that actually our Father has given us. It's a beautiful experience when you learn to connect like that to the universe, I think.
It's also about gratitude, right? Like,
absolutely. You can find that in your heart. We can find it is an attitude, because it's like you look at every moment of your life, it's just a gift. It's just a gift. I was telling somebody the other day, I don't even know how, like right now we're sharing the English language. I didn't invent that, but yet it's a gift that we have, and it's allowing us to connect and understand each other. What a gift that we can connect. Or even though, due to the circumstances, we cannot be in the same room, through this computer technology, we can have a conversation. And there's a warmth in the atmosphere. So that's a gift. To be able to be dressed in a color that I love, what a gift, right? To be able to have paper so that I can express my idea with colors, what a gift. To be able to eat every day, or like countries like Lithuania, open the tap and have clean water. What a gift. So it is that gratitude, I think, that makes the life just so joyful, naturally. It's in simplicity, really, and in enough that we find the happiness that we're all looking for. If we realize as human beings, there's always more than enough. Enough is there already. The problem is we want more than enough, and we're not appreciating enough, and we're not potentializing it and understanding, okay, I have enough, now I can give. If I have enough, I can give.
Also, maybe we lost this ability to see it. There's no wonder anymore. We take everything for granted. Like,
yes.
There is tap water coming from the tap, that's like normal. I mean, like this is the base. We don't realize that this is not the base. As you say, it's a gift.
Yes.
Could be
that's why stories are so important. That's why going to our elders and listening to them is so important. Listening to them with respect, because they have something we don't. They, at least, even in a mundane way, they have experience. If you go and you ask anybody that lived through the Soviet times, especially like in your country, I hear many stories of people that were put in Siberia for some time. If you go and listen to those people, they're very naturally grateful for freedom. We are not, because we're born in freedom, but people that have experienced otherwise, they can tell us stories of what happens when it's not like that. So I think this is why it's so important to listen to the elders. There's things in the universe that change, but there's things in the universe that are constant. And if you've lived enough cycles, you start to realize that, there's fundamental things that the elders know that we can benefit from as a new generation, right? Of course, as a new generation, there'll be adaptation into whatever it is that the world, has thrown our way. But the moral values and the ethical values remain the same, really. If we want to have a healthy society, if we want to have healthy relationships, if we want to have a healthy body, if we want to have a healthy community, if we want to have a long-lasting experience, well, there's things that we need to learn to do well, right? It starts with respect. It starts with respect to our diet, to our body, to others. It starts with men learning how to respect women and treat them as women, and with women learning to treat man and respect man as man, and the children learning the difference between those two energies. Fundamental things that, as you say, we have forgotten. So this is why stories are important, right? I remember when I was a little kid, my auntie used to take me to church, and we would sit there and listen to the Bible every Sunday. And I didn't like it. But now that I'm a man, a lot of those stories make sense these days. I remember, even though I didn't see a need for them when I was a child, I didn't have the need for the stories, right? My life was simple. I had everything I needed, no worry. But now that I have to take choices, how do you take a choice? And then, naturally the stories come to mind. And there is wisdom in those stories. And if you follow the wisdom, you end up in a harmonic place. So, thank God for my auntie that, it's like, let's go, let's listen to some good stories.
Because there is wisdom beyond the words, that you can feel and sense. And
yes, there is.
Yes, it seems like an excellent place to end this conversation. Thank you very much for.
Thank you for the invitation.
For sharing, for being there, for connecting.
Thank you for the invitation, and I pray that you may continue on this journey, and that the fruit of your labor will bring happiness to those that listen to your podcast. May you be blessed with their smile.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you for inviting me. Goodbye.